Suddenly, the movement of refugees could no longer be termed a stream. It had become a flood. Throughout the western sectors of Berlin, the humming factories were evidence of their rising prosperity. Soon indeed, West Berlin was to become again the most powerful production center in all Germany. But with the confidence, there had been sorrow. Before the bier of Mayor Reuter, crowds passed to pay homage to the man who had helped save their city. Ernst Reuter was dead, but his work was already showing great results. Meanwhile, in these years of uneasy truce, the Soviet Union had systematically turned her zone into a purely communist regime and blocked every attempt to treat Germany as a whole. The three Western powers had no alternative but to move forward with the economic unification of their zones. This was followed by political unification. Independence was not long in coming, and there was born a new sovereign state, the Federal Republic of Germany. The status of Berlin, however, was not changed. It remained the responsibility of the four occupying powers, and the garrisons stayed. The guarantee of security for Western Germany depended on the overall strength of the Atlantic Alliance. Chancellor Adenauer and the Federal Parliament agreed that the new republic should join NATO, so bringing the organization's strength up to 15 nations. And by now, strength was no misnomer. Although the crisis was far from over, NATO's power was such as to make any aggressor think carefully. Now the West could negotiate from a position of strength and confidence. At the Geneva summit, the Soviets paid lip service to the principle of German reunification, but blocked any practical progress. In those negotiations, all the trying could not break down the Iron Curtain. But for West Berlin, it would still go ahead. To the traveler flying in, the city displayed a brave new face. First, on arrival, he would see the memorial to the airlift, a sign that West Berlin remembers those who won its survival. After that, a new skyline risen from the rubble. If West Berliners had, as the communists alleged, little hope for the future, it was not apparent in the face of their steadily changing city. In West Berlin, a new look. In East Berlin, from beyond the Potsdamer Platz, still thousands arriving. Still a flood to airlift off the island to find new homes in the West. In the face of continued Soviet obstruction, the 15 NATO nations sought to clear the Soviets' minds as to how the alliance stood on the thorny question of Berlin. Already in 1954, the three powers responsible for Berlin had made it clear beyond doubt that any attack against Berlin from any quarter would be treated as an attack on their forces and on themselves. The other members of NATO immediately associated themselves with this declaration. All proposals made by the Soviets towards solving the question of the reunification of Germany implied a refusal to acknowledge the principle of self-determination by means of free elections, to which the West was and is firmly committed. Until such time as the Soviets change their minds, the NATO nations will stand firm in face of all Soviet pressure and honor their pledge to maintain the freedom of West Berlin and its people, a pledge often repeated at NATO ministerial meetings. So, until there was a change of front on the part of the East, it would seem that Germany and Berlin would remain divided. But evidence that the status quo did not suit everybody in the East was the continued flood of refugees passing through to West Berlin. In November 1958, Soviet pressure comes on again. Mr. Khrushchev begins to create his own crisis by threatening to sign a separate peace treaty with the East Germans. Paris, May 1960. Mr. Khrushchev uses the U-2 incident to break up the summit conference which was meant to bring the Berlin and German questions nearer to a solution. He drops his threat to take immediate action, but does not change his tune. Berlin, he alleges, is the capital of a sovereign East Germany, and the Allies must be made to quit Berlin. And in rearmed communist Germany, the force is there. Men and armor. June the 4th, 1961, Khrushchev to President Kennedy. Khrushchev repeats his threat to sign a separate peace treaty with East Germany, which he claims, wrongly, will end all Western rights in Berlin. And so on, move after move, until